Book 101 review. Book 101 is all about the books that I read for the last 40 years. And today I have my special guest. He is the author of the book Curse, no other than Mr. Brent Miller.
Hi, how's it going?
Welcome to Book 101 again, Mr. Brent Miller, because this is your second episode. And can you
Yes.
please introduce more about yourself?
Yeah, so I'm Brent Miller. I write and publish young adult, new adult fantasy novels. And yeah, thank you for having me. I'm excited to talk about it.
Certainly, Mr. Brent Miller, thank you so much for sharing your books to the world. So let's talk about Curse. Ivan, what is the central premise of Curse?
So, Cursed is kind of a Bildungsroman, a coming of age story where a young man is scratched by a werewolf and he kind of struggles between what the human side and the beast side of him are like what who is he, right? Who is Garrick? And it's kind of a self-discovery book and it's really him standing up for what he believes is right. So the rest of his pack is willing to make sacrifices. They're willing to um, put human lives in danger if it means keeping the pack safe. And Garrick isn't willing to do that. So it's his journey of finding his own sense of morality and his own sense of purpose.
So, Mr. Brandt, how does the title Curse reflect the main themes of the book?
So Garrick is throughout the whole first book trying to find a way to get rid of what he considers to be a curse, right? His lycanthropy, being a werewolf, is something it's a burden to him, and so he considers himself cursed.
What role does fate or destiny play in the story?
Yeah, so it's interesting because at first everything seems kind of like a coincidence, right? He happened to be in the woods and get attacked by a werewolf, but throughout the series and as the books go on, you see that there's a little bit more at play, and fate, destiny kind of hold a hand through it because Garrick is more than he realizes.
How does the protagonist deal with the curse and how does it shape the journey?
So his journey is it's the curse is really central to kind of who he is and why he even embarks on the journey in the first place. Because everyone else around him is happy with the status quo. They don't consider it a curse. They consider it kind of just, normal life. But Garrick is the one who refuses to accept the kind of the hand that he's been dealt. Um, yeah, so it really is what drives him forward to to find a better life.
So, Mr. Brandt, what deeper message or moral lessons can be drawn from the book?
So Cursed is really an examination on what it means to lead and what it means to love. So like so what it means to care for somebody else, right? And to put someone else's needs before your own. Garrick is really he's good at doing that to a fault. But really some of his friends show that message even better. So, what his best friend Tyler is a human who essentially puts his life on pause to help Garrick find a way to cure this curse. And he risks life and limb to keep his friend safe.
So let's talk about the character development, Mr. Brandt.
Sure.
Who are the main characters in Curse and what are their motivations?
So the kind of the core, the whole pack is main and central, but the core two are really Garrick and Tyler. Um, Tyler is, the best friend. He's always there for Garrick. He's always trying to help him overcome his struggles. And Garrick's motivation is really to protect humanity from himself.
So how does the protagonist evolve throughout the story?
Yeah, so Garrick starts out as a young and frankly, uh, there's no better word than stupid. He's brash and he doesn't think things through, and he makes a lot of decisions that kind of make you shake your head at him. But he makes all these mistakes and he learns and grows into a very capable leader and a hero of sorts.
Interesting indeed. What internal conflicts does the protagonist face?
Garrick spends most of the book, uh, you know, minor spoilers, but the first chapter, he discovers a dead hiker at the, and this person was killed by the werewolves, and so he struggles and he wonders, what if that was me? Like, was I the one who hurt somebody, right? And that's really what sets him off on this journey of trying to find a cure because he never wants to be the reason someone gets hurt. So it's a lot of struggling with that question and trying to overcome the beast within and the animalistic nature of the wolf. So, yeah.
So are there any major antagonists and what drives their actions?
Yeah, so the major antagonists of the first book are called the Hunters, which is exactly what it sounds like, right? They're werewolf hunters, and they're driven. From Garrick's perspective, they're cruel and they're kind of it kind of brings to question whether the humans are the true monsters, but they have their own motivations as well, and they're trying to protect humanity because werewolves are scary, right? And they do pose a threat. So these people are trying to keep humanity safe through some arguably misguided means.
Certainly. So how do the secondary characters contribute the plot and themes
Yeah,
of the
so
curse?
so the secondary characters are they're there and they help Garrick along on his path. So his friend Chase is helping him fight the curse, and it's showing essentially the the power that Garrick has, even when he is still that kid, to lead someone and to inspire them and help them to see a brighter future. And that's kind of the secondary characters are all okay with bearing the weight of the curse, and Garrick is the one who breaks it. So they kind of have that contrast of showing you this is what happens when people accept the status, the way the world is, the brokenness, and then Garrick is the one who drives all of them to fight for something better.
Certainly. Interesting novel, Mr. Brand. So let's
Yeah.
talk about world building and setting. What is the setting of Curse and how does it impact the story?
Yeah, so Cursed is set in a little bit of a kind of parallel future, as it were. So it's got the 1980s vibe, but there are a few Easter eggs in there that tell you that it's actually a future setting. But it's the small town feeling, and everybody knows everybody else, and there this story isn't really taking place on a global scale, at least at first. It's all confined to their their area.
So are there supernatural or fantastical elements in the book?
Yes. So of course, werewolves are a big start of the fantasy genre. As the series progresses, you start to see that werewolves aren't the only supernatural creatures that exist within the world, but this series is very much focused on them. Um, but yeah, there's a very deep and rich world to be explored between Cursed and the sequels and various side stories.
Certainly. So how does the curse itself function? What are its origins and rules?
Yeah, so The origins are something that they question and explore throughout the series. One of my novellas kind of gets into that, and it originated back hundreds of years ago, during the the witch trials, essentially, right? Um, but then its functions are, if someone is scratched or bitten by a werewolf and survives the encounter. So most of them are scratched because if they're bitten, they're not walking away. But so if somebody's scratched by a werewolf, they get a scar. And that scar you can see on the cover, Garrick's left arm, I believe, is scarred. And that is their proof, I guess, their evidence that they have been transformed. And from then on, every wound heals, but that one scar remains kind of as a symbol of the burden that they bear.
So, Mr. Brent, does the book explore any mythological or historical influences?
Yeah, so there's a little bit of historical influence. I try to research if I'm writing, like my prequel, for example, is set in the distant past, and so I try to research a little bit of accuracy just in terms of what technology existed and things like that. But it's not that's not my favorite thing to do, so I typically just avoid it entirely. Um, the fantasy and the supernatural elements are definitely more where I'm comfortable and what I enjoy. So I try to make sure every piece of that lore is either true to the original lore of werewolves in this case, or intentionally changed. So I've done a lot of research on um, different stories, and I wanted to make them my own without taking away that, you know, the core piece of what makes a werewolf what it is, right?
So, how does the world of Curse compare to other similar fantasy or supernatural stories?
So the world of Cursed is unique in that it's somewhat of a blend between kind of an urban fantasy set in our time, and a little bit, you get a little bit of distance because there is that eerie feeling of like it's not quite set in present day. So you have kind of a mix of supernatural paranormal world and modern day pieces, elements. So I think that helps it stand out.
So, Mr. Brent, what will be your advice for those people out there who want to write their novel?
My favorite piece of advice to give is, um, I think of writing. I mean, writing is a skill, just like every other skill. The first time you do it, it's bad. You don't you don't pick up a guitar and play beautifully, right? So my advice is always don't beat yourself up when the first thing you write is not the quality you want. You have to build the skill, train the muscle, and eventually you'll get there and you'll be amazed at the journey along the way.
Certainly, people. Thank you for your advice, Mr. Brand. And what will be your short term and long term goals in writing?
So my long-term goal is of course to be able to do this full time and to support myself and my family. Um, to share my stories with the world. I took a picture of a Barnes and Noble in New York when I was visiting, and I keep that I keep that picture as one day I'm going to be there. I'm going to be on that stage talking to the world. Um, but short-term goals, it's all a day at a time. It's all you know talking to one person about the story, getting I just got a review for my other book recently, and it made my day. Right? It's every little step that make you that make the journey worth it. And right now, I actually have my box set for Cursed that I've been working on, and so the box set is finalized, and that's super exciting. So I have a book festival to attend, the Tucson Festival of Books, in 2 weeks, and I'll be debuting it there, and then I'll put the box set up for sale on my website. So that's the exciting news for now.
Good luck to your goals, Mr. Brent Miller, and hope one day you will be my feature author of the month, just like I'm doing right now. My feature author of the month of February, Miss Raven Oak, award-winning and best-selling author, and of course, this coming March, she is award-winning and best-selling author too. So please tune in our first episode this coming Friday. We are live through Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, what else? On all social media. So please do support my book 101 review. So let's talk about the plot and conflict, Mr. Brandt. What are the main conflicts of the book? Internal, external, or both?
Yeah, so Cursed is really a blend of both. There's the internal conflict of Garrick struggling against what he sees as a physical manifestation of that beast within. So he sees the wolf and he is trying to overcome it, right? Meanwhile, he starts to make waves by doing that in the supernatural community, and the hunters find out about him, so he's struggling for his own life and fighting against a threat that has been well trained to kill people like him. So he's got internal and external struggles to work through.
Yes, interesting indeed. How does the curse create tension and obstacles for the protagonist?
So throughout the story, tension is really kept through mysteries. You're finding out about the lore and the pieces of lycanthropy as Garrick does. So certain tidbits about how does wolfsbane affect werewolves in this universe, right? Things like that, and you're slowly learning something every chapter, and you never quite know who's safe or what's around the next corner.
Are there any major plot twists that redefine the story?
There definitely are. One of my favorite twists is the ending, and then of course there are a few along the way to get there. So it's definitely a journey. My fiance likes to say, "You'll pay for the whole seat, but you'll only need the edge." So
Wow. Amazing, Mr. Brand. So, are next to this a follow up for this curse?
yeah, so the whole series is actually out. Well, the it's a tetralogy, so there are four mainline books, and then there are a series of side stories that are not, it's like they're not essential to understand the main story, but they do add context and they give some extra life to the world. And there are six of those novellas currently out, so it's definitely a large world, and you can get as invested in it as you'd like.
Yes. So, what is the climax of the story and how it resolved?
Yeah, so essentially, without giving too much away, the story all culminates in uh, a massive battle, a struggle between Garrick and the wolf, the curse, and the question becomes whether he's going to be able to overcome that curse or accept it, and kind of who who is the person that he becomes, right?
Certainly. So, Mr. Brand, before we wrap up our discussion for today, I'm inviting you to please do listen to my other podcast, Food 101, in its fifth season, people. Fifth season with my co host, one of the specialty chef in one of the five-star hotel in downtown Toronto, Chef Alessandro Panettone. So, please do listen to our latest episode. We are reading our letter senders all over the world. So, Mr. Brand, does the curse and conclusively, or does it leave room for a sequel?
It's kind of in between. So I am a firm believer that a story should be the book should be a story, and I will admit that there's a little bit of a cliffhanger in the third book. And that wasn't my intention. It was just too long, so I had to split it into two. But Cursed ends, and it ends at a point where you can be satisfied with that ending. But there is room, and there are some questions to delve into in the sequel, because there's so much more to explore. But I never want to leave a book half finished. So yeah.
Certainly. Mr. Brent Miller, thank you so much for sharing Curse to the World. So, can you please invite our listeners to support all your books?
Yeah, thank you for listening. Please go ahead and check me out on my website if you're interested, brentmillerbooks.com. All my books are listed there. They're on Amazon, and my other book, Powerless, is on Audible now. So, yeah, check them out.
Yes, people, let's support Mr. Brent Miller because if you support him, more and more novels to come. So, Mr. Brent, thank you for your time.
Thank you so much.
Bodycom people, see you soon. So, Mr. Brent, you are most welcome to come back